Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the latest edition of the Fargo 4 Show. I'm your host, Trevor Peterson. Please be joined this week by the head coach, Cary Eades, back again. He joined us for the first Fargo 4 Show of the season before the season started. We're about at the halfway point of the USHL season now, Coach. So I guess give me your assessment of how things have shaped up, your thoughts on basically 26 games in, so almost at the halfway point of the season so far.
Well, we've shown a lot of signs of improvement. You know, it was tough sledding out of the gate. Definitely, you know, our first couple weeks, we had a lot to learn. Everything was new. We talked about that heading in, but we've kind of had one step forward, one step backward since. And, you know, some areas of our game that we're happy in is our play on the road. You know, that's something that's been very strong, our road record, but counter that with a disappointing home record. So, you know, we got to play better at home. We've got to score more goals. There's some things that we have to improve on, but we really think we're making good strides to become a good hockey team.
You mentioned it, 8-5-1 on the road for the Force this season, just 3-8-1 at home, which is definitely a little bit different. Anything else surprised you thus far about this season, whether it's with your team or maybe the league at all in general?
Well, you know, it's always a tough league to win, and it's hard to win consistently if you've been as inconsistent as we have. You know, so we've got to get 60 minutes tied together. We've been a team that's been a little, I don't want to say lackadaisical, but our starts have not been as dominant as we'd like them to be. We'd like to take the pace and set the tone of the game. We've kind of been counter-punching. We're waiting to get punched in the face, so to speak, before we react. So that's something our team has addressed and talked about and we want to get better at. You know, we got to score more goals. Our defense, team defense, our goaltending has been good. Ryan Wishaw has really come in and given us steady goaltending game in, game out. Robbie Baidoon's spelled them and been a real good backup guy. So getting more goals on the board would really be a remedy for success here in the second half.
The two big themes, too, that we've seen so far through this first half of the season, you mentioned it there, you've been up and down, very up and down. I mean, no more than a 3-game losing streak, but no more than a 3-game winning streak either. So that roller coaster's kind of been, like you said, a few steps forward, a few steps back. And the other thing is, tons of one-goal games. You guys have been in probably more one-goal games than anybody in the league this season.
Yeah, you know, the roller coaster is something that we'd like to have more on a uphill climb here and, you know, string together 4 or 5 wins. You know, countering that, we don't want to have a big losing streak either. So, you know, just putting solid 60-minute game efforts in, building some foundation. We thought we had that early December. We had the big 3 wins in a row and the shootout and really had some momentum. Went to Waterloo and lost in the last minute. Lost in the last minute of overtime. Only got 1 point out of those 4. So making good strides, and then we come off the Christmas break with a little bit of a disappointing performance against Sioux City. It was kind of a sloppy game. You expect that, maybe too much turkey by the guys over the Christmas break, but you know, they made a couple more plays than we did in that game, and you know, we've got to put that behind us and look forward here to the second half and take advantage of this homestand.
All right, well, you mentioned it, the games over the holiday break, basically. Since our last show, the Force have played 3 games, part of a season-long 7-game homestand. And before we take a look at those highlights, I want to ask you, the first of those games was against Sioux Falls. You played them 4 times, your former team. This year, you're 2-2 against Sioux Falls. What's that been like, going against the team that you won a championship with last year? Was it different maybe the first time, and after that not so much? Or does it always just have a little different feel for you this season, no matter how many times you're going to play them?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. You know, I think I would be dishonest by saying it's not. You know, first of all, I've got some players on that team that I have a real close personal relationship with, and unfortunately, they're all having a great year for them. I'm proud of them, but not when they play us or they're ahead of us in the standings. But, you know, that makes it a little bit different. And obviously, you know, the jerseys and, you know, thankfully I haven't called us the Stampede this year. I was going to get into that. You get a little bit calling your past players and past names and stuff like that in coaching. But, you know, they've had a successful first half. You know, they're leading the pack right now, but everything's tight and bundled. It's 10 points separating first from last in our division. Never had this before, 25 to 28 games into the season, which everybody is. So, you know, we've got to string our own winning streak here together and not worry about them. But it's a unique outing and enjoy competing against them. All
right, well, let's take a look at some of those highlights. As Coach mentioned, Friday, December 18th versus the Sioux Falls Stampede. It was scoreless through one period, but in the second, Fargo attacking, and Zach Jan is able to find the puck in front of the net and put it in, and that gave the Force a 1-0 lead. Now, it was teddy bear toss night, so fans were encouraged to bring their own teddy bears, and after the first Force goal, they littered the ice with the bears, which were later donated to a local hospital for children. And they're nice to see Kid Bobble out there, and even some of the players getting in the act there, helping to clean up a little bit of mess there. A good cause there. Perhaps, though, the Bears threw the guys off a little bit because the Force were unable to light the lamp again despite outshooting Sioux Falls 34-12. The Stampede scored on two of those shots in the second period, and they hold on for the 2-1 victory. The Force outshot them, as we said, 34-12, 16-2 in the third period. Coach, those aren't numbers that you see very often where you guys dominate and held the team to just 12 shots and goal and lose. That doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, there was one of the players that I talked to, we'd coached about, Steph Lekes, which led us to the championship last year, really stoned us that night. And, all you can do is control what you can control, and that was, we did a very good job of puck management that night. Our offensive zone presence was really good. We got pucks to the net, obviously, with 34 shots, only giving up 12. We didn't give up many opportunities. They cashed in on 2, and we couldn't beat Lekes. So that's been a little bit of a bugaboo for our team. But, all you can do is continue to work on getting chances and then maybe having a little bit better net presence. So we've sometimes we're a little bit perimeter. We're not getting in front of that goaltender, taking his eyes away. That's something we've talked about and worked about a lot. And then, as we're going to talk about, I'm sure the next night we did a much better job in scoring the 8 against Sioux City.
Yeah, so the question the next night was, would that disappointment carry over to the next night and the Sioux City Musketeers, one of the tougher teams in the league? Saturday, December 19th, team just above you, and the Force would strike first. Late in the first, Blake Lazat to Dennis Smirnoff, who wires home the wrister, 1-0 Force after 1. Then the fireworks started. 6 combined goals in period 2, 4 by Fargo. Jared Hilderman from the blue line. That made it 3-0 Force early in the second. After a Sioux City goal, the Force answer. Hilderman again, his second of the night, 4-1. 3 minutes later, Brody Stevens puts home a rebound. That made it 5-2 Force after 2 periods. It didn't stop, though, in the third. Smirnoff, again, with his second of the game, his 10th of the season there, 6-2. Less than a minute later, Shane McMahon gets into the act with his first goal of the year, a rocket shot, 7-2. And then finally, we cap it off with Grant Meyer. He goes upper left for another absolute blast. 8-2, the Force win. The highest scoring game for the Force this season. Your previous high was 7 goals on November 7th or November 6th in a 7-1 win. 6 different guys scored. Blake Lazat with 4 assists in that game. And again, same thing as the previous game. You guys with a huge shot on goal advantage, 44-25. Had to be a great sign for you guys to bounce back and just score a bunch of goals, which you haven't done this year.
Yeah, especially coming off the disappointment of the night before against Sioux Falls, only 1 goal on 34 shots. And, being able just to listen to the coach's message of stick with what's given us success and believe in it. And sometimes when you're not successful, it's hard to have the players buy into that message. But we've got good leadership on the team. They came back the next night, worked really hard to create those chances. The disappointing thing is we needed to save a couple of those goals for the next time we played Sioux City and only got 1 against them. But that night was a really good offensive explosion for us and just showed that we are capable of scoring goals. A lot of them were rebounds. We talked about being perimeter. We had some screens and some tips in there. So those are things that we want to continue to do moving forward, getting pucks and people to the net.
So the next game then wasn't until December 27th when, as Coach said, the Force played the same Sioux City squad. Ronald McDonald with the puck drop in this one. Ronald showing some interesting moves there. I like it. And then the Force donning, I guess you'd say Ronald socks maybe a little Christmas tie to there too. Good look. Second period now is 1-0 Sioux City. Alex Steves slaps one past Ryan Wishow off the scramble, and that gave the Musketeers a 2-0 lead after 2. Force trying to rally, though, in the third. Lazat, 4 assists the last game, as we saw. This time finds space and tallies his 5th goal of the season. Force down 2-1 with 4 minutes left. But unlike the last game, goals were hard to come by. The Musketeers at an empty netter late to win 3-1. And the Force finally did not win the shots on goal. The Musketeers won that one 26-25. So after that loss then, as we take a look at the updated standings in the USHL, basically not much has changed from the past couple of weeks. Lincoln still on top, then Sioux Falls. And as Coach mentioned earlier in the show, the Force right in there, less than 10 points, basically 6 points separating the bottom 6 teams there, Coach. I mean, you just said it before, but never been a season like this, at least at this point, where you can see so many teams so bunched together, huh?
That's correct. And Lincoln did add the victory after the Christmas break, so now it's a 12-point spread only with 8 teams. But, right there, we've got to string together 3 or 4 or 5 wins here in a row, continue to build on the successful things that we've improved on and gotten better at, and try to minimize our mistakes in front of our goaltenders, minimize our shots against, our chances against, and just continue to improve both internally and externally.
Do you feel, as a coach, do you feel like this team has the capability, it's just a matter of time, or Is it just one of those things where it's just tough to say? I mean, like you said, some steps forward, some steps back. Do you really feel like, hey, we're just about to break out? We're doing some good things. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, no question about it. We got belief in the guys, and I think their recent acquisitions of players shows that we're all in for this year. You know, we're right in the pack. It's no one's really dominant right now in our conference. It's who's going to improve the most in the second half and put together a streak. And, you know, it's going to be tough to make the playoffs and then advance, but we're right in the hunt, and we're all in on this year definitely, and we're continue to improve and move forward. All
right, so you mentioned a couple recent acquisitions. Let's talk a little bit about those. One of the trades that you recently made, you added forward Charlie Gerard from the Madison Capitals, traded away Brody Stevens, one of your good players from last year and this year a little bit too. And then also another trade that you just made the day that we're taping here as well. Tell me about that one as well, and kind of the thoughts behind both trades.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and we also added Grant Meyer recently too from Youngstown, and he's played very well for us in the month of December. But as far as Charlie Gerard, he's a player from the Madison Capitals that I've kind of coveted for a while. I tried to acquire him last year to play for us in Sioux Falls. Couldn't get that deal done. And we're able to complete something this year. And you know, Charlie's a goal scorer. He's a playmaker. We talked about one of our deficiencies of a team. Scoring goals, right? And Brody's had a little bit of a tough start to his year. You know, we've expected more, he expects more, and you know, hopefully he'll get his game going a little bit in Madison as well. Sometimes it can work well for both teams. So that was the rationale behind that. And then just coming out of the Christmas break, we did move Colin Burston, a player that really has done well penalty killing, but only had 1 assist in 23 games. And he went back to his old team in Wenatchee, and we were able to acquire a defenseman today, actually, Cary Eades, defenseman from Finland who played for Chicago here in the first half of the season. We're a little banged up on the back end. You can move defense up to forwards. It's hard to do the opposite, so you got to be deep in that position. And we like the way he's a puck-moving defenseman. He defends well, and we think he can not only help us defensively, but again, add to our goals by making good first passes and getting the puck in the hands of the forwards quickly.
And we talked about this before we taped. You know, a lot of times, sometimes these trades are made for a guy that you know is going to be with your organization for the next year, looking forward to the future. Not the case with these. Both these guys, this is going to be their only year with the Force. You're trying to win now, as you told me. There's no looking forward to the future necessarily. It's, hey, we hope these guys come in, can bring us that little spark, that little more goal scoring, or that little whatever we need to win now. We're in it to win it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the message to the guys. You know, both of them are 95 birth dates, which is the last year of junior hockey. They'll be going on to college hockey next year. And, you know, our thoughts are, you know, as we mentioned just earlier, you know, we're in the hunt on this thing. You know, we want to go forward with the group that we have, improve them as we go along individually and collectively, and then add some pieces that we think are intelligent as we try to build this towards a playoff team. You also have to have a little bit of half an eye looking forward down the road. We're not going to sell our future, you know, be all in on this year. That would be kind of silly. But, you know, we like the group we have, and we believe in them, and we think these new additions are going to help us get more wins in January. All
right, well, let's take a look at those upcoming games on the Force schedule over the next 2 weeks. You start off New Year's Eve game versus Des Moines. That's a 6:05 start. Now, all these are at Shields Arena, by the way, at home for the Force. Then after New Year's Day, then you start on Saturday, January 2nd in 2016 versus Waterloo. And then the next weekend, you come back and host the Chicago team, 7:05. Both starts there January 8th and 9th. Of course, FargoForce.com for tickets on both of those, or 364-3672. Coach, one thing, if there'd be one thing that you could want in 2016 here as we get ready to transition to a new year, what's the most important thing that you're focusing on with these guys to try to make that make the playoffs?
More wins, bottom line. You know, we got to find a way to get it done. You know, you mentioned earlier that we have a lot of one-goal games. You know, we've won our share of those. You know, we have to do some things to win more of them, and then also not put ourselves in those one-goal games. And that's easier said than done. You know, you can take a look at the standings and see how tight the league is. You know, it's hard to win by 2, 3, 4 goals, or the 8-2 win that we had against Sioux City. But trying to play a more of a complete 60 minutes to not only get a lead, but then build on it. All
right. Well, thanks for joining us this week. Best of luck the rest of the way, and we'll talk to you towards the end of the season.
Thanks very much, Trevor.
All right. That'll do it for this edition of the Fargo Force Show. I want to thank Coach Cary Eades, and we'll see you next time.